Okay, well, no lessons on ghosts and spirits today, but we're looking through the Gospel of Thomas, and we're on, in Christian speak, we're on Logion 103. We're on Shloka 103 for the Vedantins, and we're on verse 103 for everybody else. All right. These don't seem, anyway, to be put in any real kind of order or even groupings. It seems that each one of these shlokas or verses stands on its own, kind of gives its own teaching about things, which I find interesting actually. And as I say that, I'm realizing I'm going to have to read through them several more times to make sure that's the case, make sure I'm not missing something in there. So Logion 103, Yeshua said, "Blessed are they who know at what time of night the thieves will come. They will be awake, gathering their strength and strapping on their belts before the thieves arrive." And this is just that blessing for knowing your internal self, for being alert on the inside. This reminds me when I read it of what I was sharing about that period of time where I was studying the body mind from the inside, just trying to become very familiar with my inner world and mapping it out a bit. And so I would focus on body and just really study how the body talks to me, how it communicates to me, how it presents itself to me, when it presents itself to me, why it presents itself to me, and in what ways. And then I did the same thing with mind. How does mind show me its thoughts? How does it, get my attention, as it were? And what does it tell me? What information is involved? How is it different from the way body speaks? And how do I know whether it's mind or body that's making the sound to me in my internal world? And then studied my own self, that's the self part, the witness part. And that really, I found only silence there, only great stillness in that part. And that it was very interesting to me to see that from that part, no desire ever arises, that the desires are always presented by the body or the mind. They never come from the witness. And I found that very intriguing. And so when he says here, "Blessed are they who know at what time of night the thieves will come," when you study your inner world like that and you study the way the mind works, you can see the impetus of a thought before the thought. Right? You can see the thoughts before they join with other samskaras to become states, like a state of lust or a state of anger or a state of jealousy or any kind of provocation. That you can see that coming at a subtle level long before it becomes a problem, long before it actually becomes an active thought in your mind. And so I can't help but think of that here, that to have that awareness, to develop that kind of alertness inside, of watching the mind, watching the body, watching the self, that allows you to be in a state of awakeness, of alertness, of inside, and so that says that you'll be awake and that you'll have the strength, and you'll be prepared. Basically, you have all of your weapons on long before you really even need them, before the thieves arrive, right? Before the troubles actually become a state of mind, before lust actually becomes a state of mind, when it's just at first, maybe it's just that touch on your arm that was the impetus for it, or seeing someone beautiful that reminded you of something, or uh, being in a situation that reminds you of it. And when that happens, then you're much better prepared. It doesn't become as difficult to deal with. Like, because most of us are, and I know for me, for most of my spiritual life, I was not aware of things at that level at all. And, it was when lust was fully developed that I realized, oh my gosh, I'm in a situation. Or my anger was fully developed. I'd be like, oh God, I got to deal with anger, right? And by the time it becomes fully developed, there's not a whole lot you can do about it. It's pretty much there and it's running its cycle. And you can go to the shrine, you can do whatever techniques you use, but I found that I wasn't very successful most of the time, and that really changed when I became much more sensitive inside, when I could see, a common sensation that causes a certain feeling or causes a certain memory, or uh, run into a situation or a familiar environment, or all these things that trigger samskaras, to trigger your old experiences, old memories. And so he's saying here, blessed is the person who is well equipped inside. And this is it's being well equipped with no judgment. You don't care necessarily what you're going to find there. You're just making sure that it's not ill-intentioned, that it's not going to pull you out of your center. It's not going to disturb your inner peace, disturb your establishment inside, right? Logion 104. They said to him, come, let us pray and fast today. And Yeshua answered, what wrong have I done? How have I been defeated? When the bridegroom leaves the bridal chamber, that will be the time to fast and pray. Right? This is wonderful. Actually, you can talk about this in many ways here. I'm looking at their own little commentary. I'll read through it here. It says, when you are with others, do you think longingly of them? No, for you are with them. When God is truly present, there is no need to pray or fast. His presence fills everything. The bridal chamber is permeated with that fragrance. Yet it happens that the bridegroom leaves the chamber. In other words, we leave the state of union between created and uncreated. Then is the time for praying and fasting so that we may return, right? And so this is going to really a state of exile inside. It means that there's no need for these practices when you're in the presence of the bridegroom. Now, some people say that's when Jesus or when Ramakrishna were actually around, that during that time there was no need for fasting and whatnot because they had the beloved right there. I don't like that idea because I don't think that the scriptures would give a teaching that's relative to such a small number of people, the people who were in the room with Ramakrishna. And so I think it means for us, that these practices really, uh, if we're in the presence, you don't need much more. If you can maintain the awareness of the divine, if you can maintain the presence of the beloved or of the self in the shrine of the heart, this is a careful thing for me to say out loud because some people might say, "Oh yeah, I feel that," and then cease doing all of their practices because they're like, "Oh yeah, I think of God all the time. I don't need to do any practices." That's not quite the level we're talking about. We're talking about really being soaked in syrup like a rasgulla, where the divine name is echoing in your heart, in your mind all the time, that you are having, divine moods regularly. The bliss is palpable in your life, that you're in the presence, you're established in the presence. And that really is what life is the intention of life, is to live in that space. And in that space, what does Ramakrishna says? He says, when the hair on your arm stands on end at the chanting of God's name, then a lot of your other practices, like your daily pujas and your whatnots like that, can fall away at that time. They're not necessary for you anymore, right? That you've come to a place where you've hoisted your sail, the winds of grace have filled them, and you're going joyfully forward. And so this is a place that all of us want to get. We want to get that sail hoisted, do that initial practice to sensitize ourselves toward the thought and presence of God within, get our yamas and niyamas in order so that we're not wasting our energies on expending them on pleasures and enjoyments. And we're getting our attraction to those things. We're starting to get them to loosen and weaken because we're doing our discernment, right? And we've discerned our way through their control over us, and now it's just a dying habit that has to be renounced, kind of clipped off. So it's not talking about a shortcut. It's not talking about taking life easy because you have the grace of the Lord. It means that you've digested the grace of the Lord in the right way, that that has added to your efforts and your inspiration of being, and that you've, like I say, you've hoisted your sail and you're sailing, you're going forward now because the winds are behind you. You've got now good samskaras behind you. You've got good karma behind you, blowing you forward. And so he's saying at that time, these practices of fasting and praying and all of your repentances and whatnot, that those things, those, it's not that you don't have to do them anymore. It's that you can enjoy some of your freedom that has come to you through grace. You can enjoy that time with the beloved in that way. That it's not all about practice at this point in your life, right? So just don't let the bridegroom out of his chamber. So stay in the heart. I think this is talking very much of that idea of you are a temple. Your body is a temple of your divine spirit of God. And that because you are a temple, you have an inner atmosphere. And you know how some temples where there's been lots of good practice, there's been lots of, lots of devotion shown there. In those temples, there's a divine mood. There's a stillness usually in there. Like the old temple in San Francisco has it. The shrine in the Hollywood Monastery temple has that same atmosphere to it. Kasipur Garden House, woof, one of the most amazing places where Thakur spent his last days. Amazing atmosphere there. And Shanti Ashrama, oh my gosh, if you ever get a chance to go to Shanti Ashrama up in the Bay Area, that's some holy ground there. That place is amazing. I've never been somewhere. We used to go up there for a week to prepare the place for a pilgrimage on the last Saturday of every April. And we had visiting swamis that we would take out there. And one of the swamis that was out there, wouldn't eat on the property. He just kept going around chanting just because he was intoxicated. The mood, he said, this is such a holy place. I will not eat here. Right? He wouldn't even use the bathroom there. He waited until we drove 2 hours back down the hill to civilization to use the bathroom because he simply would not do it in that place. He felt was so charged with this holiness. And see, your practice, this is one of the reasons that you do practice. This is one of the reasons that you chant the names of God, is because it is possible and actually natural and normal for you to have that atmosphere within yourself so that you have your own shrimp, your own shrine, your own temple within your heart is your place of refuge. And you go there and feel that stillness and feel that sacredness and that holiness because you've done the work, right? You've done the work there. When you build a shrine in your home, I always tell people that before you use that shrine for the first time, detail that room or that place, wherever that you've got your shrine, to a level of detail that is absurd. I mean, we're talking, if there's mini blinds in the room, go and wash every single mini blind, every single slat, polish it nicely, go all the way through, wash the windows inside, wash the windows from the outside, vacuum the curtains. If you've got curtains in the room, vacuum the floor, detail the corners, get in there with literally with Q-tips to clean that last little bit of dirt out of the corner of the shrine room on the baseboards. Get behind the doors, wipe everything. Just do it to the nth degree. And I won't even have to tell you why. The first time you sit in a room that you have done that in, the atmosphere is established. The sacredness is established, and it will be a radically different experience than if you just walk in the room and start using it. And so put that effort into your personal shrine, and you'll have a charged personal shrine. put that effort into yourself, into the temple of your heart, and you will have a charged temple within your own heart. So I encourage people, if you have a new shrine, sit in front of it and write your mantra 1,000 times or 2,000 times or 5,000 times, whatever you want, on a piece of paper in the neatest writing you can do, just 5,000 times, and then fold up those pieces of paper and store them under your shrine or in your shrine, because that effort, that focus, that worship on your part produces an atmosphere, produces your awareness of presence. And so these are wonderful ways of creating holy space for you to do your practice, for you to have your refuge. And if you've got your own shrine, you've got your own one in your own heart, what a fantastic aid and help that is in going forward, to have that kind of place. And so this is what he's talking about here, right? And so we try and create those spaces. And when we have those spaces established, then there's no need to go on and continue to do them in that way. That's not to say that you wouldn't do them because you just enjoy doing them. You enjoy chanting Mother's name. I know that has happened to me in my life, that those things that used to take just nothing but discipline, eventually, when you start cleaning up the mess inside, you realize that they're enjoyable, that they're wonderful, that they produce a fruit that is delicious to sit with. All right. Number 105, Yeshua said, "He who knows his father and his mother, will they call him the son of a whore?" My goodness gracious. Even that thought hurts my tongue to say. All right, let me read what they say here. Maynard translate this logion as, "Whoever knows his father and mother will be called the son of a whore." He interpreted knowing one's father and mother as a symbol of bondage to the flesh and prostitution to matter. But of what father and mother does the logion really speak? Is it not the divine father and mother spoken of earlier? Furthermore, there is a real possibility that this logion contains a copyist's error. The Coptic Pishere Mempiorne, son of a whore, is very close to Pishere Memprome, son of man. Indeed, the latter term occurs in the very next logion, the very next verse. According to Rudolf Kasser, this is deliberate, serving as a link between the two logia. If this is true, then the meaning is clear. A Gnostic who knows his divine father and mother will be called a son of man. All right, that's actually a very helpful piece there, but you have to count on the verse being copied wrong when it was written. And so it's hard to say, "He who knows his father and his mother, will they call him the son of a whore?" You could go that way. You could also call, "He who knows his father and mother is someone who knows who they are," right? They have their family lineage, they have their tradition. And I contrast this with that story of that young boy that Ramakrishna talks about, who doesn't know his father. And he asks his mother who his father is. His mother says, "I don't know who your father is," and so the boy goes to the Golokam, to the school, to study under a sadhu. And the sadhu asks him, "What is your lineage?" He says, "I do not know who my father is." And the leader of the school says, "Wow, a son who is that honest has to be a Brahmin." So he accepts him into the school because of his honesty, saying, because you don't know, you don't know your father. Normally he would not have been able to get into the school because there'd been no evidence that he was Brahmin, and so that he wouldn't qualify for being in the school. And so I think here it's something quite similar. He who knows his father and mother, will they call him the son of a whore? It's like, someone, if you know yourself, you're not an orphan. If you know yourself, you have that strength of being within yourself, that identity of self, right? And so if you know your divine nature, if you know that your nature is divine, then will they call you anything else, right? You won't be engaged in any of those other things that they could insult you with. And so they say they wouldn't reference to you. And so this is the importance of knowing who you are in this world, because if you don't know who you are, then the potentials of becoming a prostitute or a whore or someone addicted to any numerous things, losing your way in the world is quite easy. And you will be called this name and maybe many other names by different folks at different times, right? And so know your nature, and then you know what produces a fulfilling life, what produces a good life. And you won't have to make all the errors, all the mistakes that so many people have to endure because they don't know who they are. So they don't know what makes them happy. They don't know what produces a fulfilling life. Right? This is one of the reasons that is the watchword or the fundamental question of the Vedanta. Who am I? Because if you don't know who you are, you can't fix any of your troubles. Because without knowing who you are, you don't know what the healthy you looks like, right? And so this is why we have to come to discover this divine nature of Satchitananda. Once you know that you are love, wisdom, and being, then you know if you live a life that's motivated by love, right? A love that's equanimously expressed, that if you live a life of wisdom, of intelligence, if you learn from your mistakes and grow, you know, and if you are present, if you can be present in the moment, then you are living a life according to your nature, and the byproduct will be a fulfilling and happy life. If you don't know those things and you think that it's entertainment that you need, you think that it's fame that you need, you think it's money that you need, then you go running after these things and you turn into these other things, right? That greedy miser, right? That licentious old man, who's 90 years old and still hitting on teenage women. You see these people in the world, right? I remember in San Francisco, there was this old man, an old gay man. He must have been 80, couldn't have been a day much younger. And he would always walk around in the leather garb, with just, and it wasn't even funny. It was so off-putting. You were embarrassed for him, that he had not transcended any of those things by his old age. It wasn't the things he was engaged in that was the trouble. It was the fact that he was somebody still trapped in the world of a 20 something, still running after those pleasures, having not discerned his way through any of them, and still presenting himself as an object of desire at the age of 80 something. It's like, hmm, this is not how we want to end life. This is not where we want to get stuck, right? We want to grow into our fullness, grow into our nature of what we are, right? And this is what prevents us from getting into these ever being in a situation where somebody would call you the son of a whore. What? I'm so uncomfortable with even that phrase. Oof, yikes. All right. So you can do that, or you can see it as what he's saying. He says, he who knows his father and mother, they'll call him the Son of Man, right? They'll call him, which was a nomer of the name of Christ, the Son of Man, you know, that you are of divine parentage, as it were. All right. Number 106. Yeshua said, when you make the two into one, you will be a son of man. And when you say, mountain, move, it will move. Hmm. Yes, this is wonderful. When you make the two into one, Ramakrishna talks about that. As soon as you have to live at peace with your two wives under the tree of dispassion, right? You have to bring these two sense of self. He says, as in Logion 22 and elsewhere, the teaching here is about the union of all dualities, matter and spirit, male, female, created and uncreated, and so forth. In realizing this union in ourselves, we become a son of man, right? We become a Buddha. We become a enlightened. Again, this symbolic term has nothing to do with a masculine bias of any kind, but rather with becoming fully and divinely human. When faith, peace, and unity reign, all laws are transcended. Even mountains cooperate, and obstacles recede before the passage of the living one. Right? And so this notion of the mountain moving, that's a refrain in Christianity. If you have faith the size of a mustard seed, which means if you have the smallest amount of faith, you can say to this mountain, get up and throw yourself into the sea. And I tell you the truth, it will throw itself into the sea. And so it's not that you grow into a place where you can commit miracles, right? That's how I grew up thinking about it, that if you have faith, then you can break all the rules of nature and perform miracles. But that's not what he's talking about here. What he's talking about here is knowing the fundamental nature of all things, right? And you are in harmony with that fundamental nature of all things, and you will realize that the mountain uh, uh, is not there by nature, right? That it is a projection, that it's malleable, that it's consciousness, it's not matter. And so, in that, you knowing your own self as awareness, as consciousness, you know that your nature and the mountain's nature are the same. And through that, you can say to the mountain, get up and throw yourself into the sea, and it will do it because you know the nature of things. You are in harmony with things. And the thoughts of your mind are the thoughts of the universal mind. You have given up uh, the the egoistic view of things. So I often like to think about this with Ramakrishna, because remember, he wanted to build that fence around the Panchavati. And he says, he was telling the devotees himself, he says, amazing. He says, as soon as that thought occurred to me to build that fence, suddenly on the Ganges, on the banks of the river, all of the tools and equipment necessary for building that fence washed up on the beach, washed up on the shore. The wood, the nails, the hammers, everything necessary for doing it. And I always thought, well, either he produced a miracle, but Vivekananda says there's none such thing as a miracle, right? That everything obeys its law of being. But it means that you know that law of being, and knowing through that knowledge, your mind is in harmony with the divine mind. And we know that things happen because the divine will, they happen, right? A mountain is going to explode, a volcano is going to go off, right? It's a natural occurring thing. There's no miracle there. But if a holy man knows that that mountain's going to explode and he tells everybody the mountain will explode, everybody will say, oh my goodness, a miracle. He predicted the mountain was going to explode. Well, no, he didn't know and predict the particulars like that. His mind was in sync with the flow of the universal mind. So he's aware of these things, right? He's still inside, so his mind isn't preoccupied with ego self. He's got the still waters of mind, so that things that are going on everywhere, he is aware of them because they ripple through his mind space, as it were, his section, his egoistically defined section of the universal mind. We know that from the book Raja Yoga, where Vivekananda talks about how it is that somebody can read someone else's mind. He said the process of reading someone's mind is not to delve into their mind, it's to silence your own mind. And when your mind is silent and you stand in the presence of someone else, the ripples of their mind can ripple through your mind. You can hear their thoughts. You can know their thoughts. Not because you're in their space, but because their thoughts are rippling through your space. And you are so calm and so quiet inside that you can read those ripples. You can hear those ripples. And so it's like that. So Yeshua said, when you make the two into one, when you know that there is no thinker and listener within you, there's only the listener, the witness, right? When you resolve that duality, there is no internal, external to you. There's one without a second, right? Then when you say to the mountain, move, it moves, because you at that point are the universal mind. You're no longer the egoistic self. You are the one without a second, right? Number 107, Yeshua said, the kingdom is like a shepherd with 100 sheep. One of them disappeared. It was the most beautiful. The shepherd left the other 99 sheep and looked only for that one until he found it. After his great effort, he said to the lamb, I love you more than the other 99. All right. Now, I was familiar with this passage. This is also something from Matthew 18. Um, the kingdom is like a shepherd, right? And Jesus makes this statement that if he loses one of his sheep, he'll wander off and look until he finds that lost sheep and brings him back to the fold, right? And it's just a statement of God's commitment of, in this sense, obviously the personal God, the personal God's commitment to you and to your well-being. And it also brings a bit into my mind the story in the Bhagavatam, I think, of Krishna dancing with the gopi girls in the forest at night. He's playing his flute and they're dancing around a fire. It's one of my favorite stories because it says in there that every one of those women dancing around that fire believed that they were Krishna's favorite, right? Every one of them felt that they were like Krishna's favorite. And at some point, Krishna picks up Radha and carries her off into the woods. And the story says that Radha thought to herself, oh, I'm the real favorite because he's picked me up and carried me off without the other ones. And then as soon as she has that thought, she literally finds herself dropped to the ground and Krishna is nowhere to be found. Which I love that. I love that imagery, Radha and all of her finery, feeling that moment of pride of being Krishna's favorite, suddenly boop, and she just falls to the ground in the weeds and whatnot. And there's two things about this. One is that yes, in fact, everybody is God's favorite. Why? Because God is an infinity. And so he can fill you up to your maximum capacity to be loved, which will make you feel like you're his favorite. And he can do that without slighting anyone else. He can fill up everyone else in that room to the brim so that everybody is enjoying being God's favorite. But when the ego turns a gift into poison, right, by creating an I, a sense of individuality, a sense of separateness around it, you can know that that abandonment will happen immediately. God will be like, no, I will be in no part in cleaning, in increasing your sense of egoism, increasing your pain and suffering, right? And so immediately you're dropped. You're still God's favorite. What's not allowed is thinking yourself God's favorite at the expense of others. If you can understand the nature of God's love, then you can be God's favorite and enjoy that. But understand that everybody else in the room is also God's favorite, and you don't feel threatened because you know God is that big. God is able to do this. And so he's talking here that God's value for you as an individual, not your value for you as an individual, but God's value for you as an individual. And that if you disappear, right, if you take a wrong turn, God is dedicated to bringing you back to the fold because you are his favorite, but not a favorite at the expense of anyone else, right? So he'll leave those other 99 sheep to carry on, and he'll go looking for that one until he finds it. So no, God comes and finds you. If you wander too far off, God comes and finds you because of that love for you, right? And then he comes to that lamb who has wandered off and gives him that extra assurance of love, right? Even speaking in terms of egotism, I love you more than the other 99. That would be medicine, a statement of medicine. I love you so much. Look, I left everyone else aside to come get you, right? Because you wandered off because you didn't know that. You forgot. You didn't understand the love that God had for you. So you wandered off and got lost and got trapped. And he comes and he makes a point, a grand point. Look, I love you at least this much that I've left everyone else to come and get you, right? So come back. Since I found these little commentaries here, I'll read this one. It says, there are a number of possible interpretations of this famous parable of the lost sheep. Let us begin with that of Valentinus, who is often called a Gnostic, but who had better to be described as influenced by the Gnostics. It is important to bear in mind the distinction between Gnosis and Gnosticism, sometimes written as Gnosticism with a capital G. The latter is limited to certain historical phenomena. Yeah, this is why I don't like these things. The latter is limited to certain historical phenomena that were influential around the time of early Christianity and are often associated with it. The former is an attitude of the heart and mind oriented toward the apprehension of divine presence, regardless of that era of or culture it manifests in and what religious language it uses. For Valentinus, Yeshua is the shepherd who leaves the 99 sheep that have not strayed and rejoices in finding the one who has. Valentinus gave great significance to the numbers 99 and 1, for in those days there was a method of counting up to 99 with the left hand and moving to the right hand for 100. Thus, the strayed sheep represents completion, and the one. It is the most beautiful sheep because it transcends multiplicity and opens the shaft to a higher state of consciousness, opens the shift to a higher state of consciousness. This same interpretation is found in the Gospel of Truth. It is he, the shepherd, who has left the 99 lambs who did not stray. He went to search for the one who strayed and rejoiced when he found it. For 99 is a number counted on the left hand, but when he found the one, the total number shifted to the right hand. Right, okay. So that's a bit more heady. You have to know your history to get that one. But yes, that coming to perfection, that's what Jesus is coming to get you for, what the shepherd is coming to get you for, right? To bring you in to the one, into the one without a second. No, he continues on. He says a different interpretation is taken from inspiration from the canonical gospels, the ones that are in the Bible. It emphasizes the infinite mercy of God, which desires for all to be saved and for all to attain to the fullness of truth. There is more rejoicing then for one sinner who repents than for 99 righteous who have no need to repent. Right? And so that's more of the traditional perspective on that. But in the end, take home the fact that the beloved is in love with you and that you may make one little tiny step toward her and she will take 16 toward you, Ramakrishna says. And so God is pursuing you more intensely than you are pursuing her. And so it's just a reassurance of that this is not a one-sided thing where God has just kind of tossed you out there and doesn't care whether you make it or don't make it, that he's making at least as much effort as you are to bring you about. And you say, well, how come I don't feel it? Well, because you're not paying attention. All that pain in your life is the love of God trying to show you the results of what you're doing. You're not in a place where your life is bringing about fullness, bringing about joy and bliss, right? And so it's because you're not watching. God is paying working at detail levels throughout your entire day to bring you back to oneness. That's why you're frustrated. That's why you can't find your peace. That's why you can't find your meaning, why everything seems empty. It's because God has removed all of that fulfillment in an effort to get you looking even harder for that which is true, for that which works in life, for that which is fulfilling. 108. Oh, we're on to an auspicious number. Let's see what this one says. Yeshua said, "Whoever drinks from my mouth will become like me, and I will become them, and what was hidden from them will be revealed." Ah, beautiful poetic way. Whoever drinks from my mouth, whoever takes the teachings uh, from me, right? He is from John, our verse on the word there. He's the most pure manifestation of word, right? The purest expression of God, right? All of the incarnations are that, the purest and highest expression of God. There's very little distortion in them at all. And so if you draw to them and drink from their mouth, drink the words from their mouth to quench your thirst, if you take refuge in them, right? If you go to them for your peace, you go for them for your strength, you go to them for your contentment, you go to them for your joy, for your sorrow, for all of your things. Whoever drinks from my mouth will become like me, right? And what is like him? Like him means like the Father, like God, like the divine beloved. You become like the divine beloved, and I will become them, right? This means that your ego self dies. This is what Paul was meaning when he said, "It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me." So Christ becomes you, or you become Christ. Same thing. From your perspective, I became like God, and from God's perspective, I became you, right? I took that placeholder with your name on it and then acted in the world using that, right? So whoever drinks from my mouth will become like me, and I will become them. And what was hidden from them will be revealed. And what is revealed? Oh, wow. Yes, this is all of that beautiful things, all the gems that lie around the door to the inner shrine that Ramakrishna says, dive deep, find the gems that lie deep within you, right? What are those gems? Your immortality, your strength, your infinite freedom, your wisdom, the depth of wisdom that you become aware of in the moment when the mind is silent, that conquerable strength, that your word is your word, your yes is yes, and your no is no. There's a perfect integrity that you will develop and find inside. You'll see that well of truth, how you inherently know what is right. You inherently know what is good because it is your nature, and no longer are you ego identified. So these are the gems that we find, that those things that are hidden from us right now that will be revealed in that time, that you live in a timeless, infinite world of pure love and pure wisdom, hidden from you by the desires of your senses and the confusion of your nature with that which is temporal, that which is constantly changing. Yes. All right, this next one. Let's see, number 109. Yeshua said, "The kingdom is like the man who had a hidden treasure in his field. He did not know it was there. When he died, he left the field to his son, who knew nothing and sold the field. The buyer came to plow the field and found the treasure while working. He began to lend money at interest to all who wanted it." According to some interpretations, the owner is a Jew, the son is a Christian, and the buyer is a Gnostic. The treasure is the spiritual one hidden in every human being. The Nacenes considered the treasure to be the kingdom of heaven, which resides in the Gnostic. The mention of interest might be a symbol for the multiplication of spiritual riches when they are shared. In a more general sense, this parable illustrates that most people have no inkling of the treasure that is hidden within them. The self, which is embedded in the heart of every creature, is smaller than the infinitely small and more luminous than the infinitely great, according to the Katha Upanishad. We overlook the presence of this treasure. Even those who claim to be disciples of the Christ are ignorant of their heritage. The one who discovers it is the passerby, the stranger who patiently works his field. It's interesting. So the kingdom of heaven is like the man who has a hidden treasure in his field. And so they're saying this is the Jewish religion that gave birth to the Christ, but did not realize or did not recognize him. So then Jesus says, in that one place, he says, everybody was invited to the feast, but nobody came. And so he sends his servant out into the streets, bring anybody, just go find everybody, whoever wants to come. And so those are the people that the field gets sold to, right? Well, his son, the Christians, right? And then the buyer came to plow the field and found the treasure while working, and he began to lend the money at interest, right? He found the treasure and shared it and gained the benefit of that, right? It's it's not a mercantile transaction. It's that when you live according to your nature, right, and you serve others as yourself, your joy increases, your love increases, your strength increases. That's the interest. It's not that you're metering it away from everybody else. It's that this is what happens to you by your nature when you live according to your nature. Those who have will get more, right? And those who have none, even what they have will be taken away, right? Because you can't live a fulfilled life without the knowledge of your nature, your divine nature. You must come to this knowledge. If you don't have it, your life will reflect that absence, right? And the habits that you develop in that absence will take even the little bit that you may have had away from you. You'll lose it. You'll forget it. You won't see it. But those who know their nature, those who let go of their egoism, those who let go of their lower self and embrace their divine image, those will get filled up and they will have more than they ever imagined that they had, right? The joy in you is greater than what you've ever imagined. None of us imagines that at this moment, that this very moment in us lies enough joy to throw us into ecstasy to the point of the body dropping off. And yet we will discover that one day. We will touch our divine nature, maybe accidentally, maybe on purpose, but we'll touch it and we'll have that samadhi. And we'll be like the Ramakrishna says, the first word is, what is this? And then there is no second word. Ah, filled and exploded in bliss. All right, we'll stop there for today.